300 men stood against 1,000,000. One king became immortal. But here's what they don't tell you. The hero of Thermopylae was also the enforcer of history's most brutal state-sanctioned murder system. And the 300 weren't the only ones who died at his command. Every year, Leonidas oversaw the ritual murder of thousands of innocent people, not Persians, but Greece's own enslaved population. The very survival of Western civilization supposedly rested on this man's shoulders. But what if the cure was worse than the disease? By the end of this video, you'll understand why the real Leonidas was simultaneously Greece's greatest hero and its most efficient monster. You'll discover the horrifying training that created the 300 children forced to murder for food, why Leonidas chose death over tactical withdrawal, and who really paid the price, and the systematic genocide he enforced that makes Persian barbarism look civilized. You think you know this story, the noble king, the impossible odds, the ultimate sacrifice, but hidden beneath the bronze and legend is a mathematical impossibility that shatters the myth. 300 versus 1,000,000, except the real numbers tell a different story. Here's the darker math no one mentions. 7 helots murdered for every one Spartan citizen every single year. That's not war. That's systematic extermination. 3 mysteries haunt the real Thermopylae. What happened to the Helot rebellion of 490 BC that Leonidas crushed? Why did a tactical genius choose certain death when retreat was possible? And what was the krypteia, the secret murder program that Leonidas himself survived and later commanded? To understand how one man could be both savior and monster, we need to go back to a blood-soaked December night in 490 BC. Sparta wasn't just a city-state. It was a prison camp masquerading as a civilization. By 490 BC, when our story begins, this military machine ran on a simple, terrifying equation: complete dominance through complete brutality. But here's what the histories won't tell you. Sparta's greatest enemy wasn't Persia. It was the 250,000 human beings they kept in chains. Meet the key players in this tragedy. Leonidas, whose name means lion's son, wasn't born to be king. He was the third son, the spare's spare, hardened by a childhood that would break most adults. His half-brother Cleomenes, the mad king, whose mysterious death would clear Leonidas's path to power. And Gorgo, Leonidas's niece and wife. Yes, you heard that correctly, the only woman in Sparta who could speak in the assembly, forged from the same iron as her husband. The number is staggering. 7 helots for every Spartan citizen. These weren't foreign captives but Greeks, descendants of the original inhabitants, reduced to agricultural slaves. Every autumn, Sparta declared war on its own helot population. Not metaphorical war, actual, legal war. This meant any Spartan could kill any helot without consequence. They called it maintaining order. We call it state terrorism. Listen carefully. You can almost hear the bronze on bronze as we examine Sparta's power structure. 2 kings ruled simultaneously, a system designed to prevent tyranny that instead created double the oppression. 5 ephors, elected annually, wielded the real power. The Gerousia, 28 elders over 60, decided who lived and died. And binding it all together, the agoge, the training system that turned boys into weapons. But Leonidas had one advantage Xerxes couldn't imagine. He'd survived the most brutal military training in human history. At age 7, the state had stolen him from his mother. What they gave back 23 years later wasn't human anymore. But how does a prince become a monster? It started when Leonidas was 7 years old. The agoge didn't create soldiers, it manufactured killers. When 7-year-old Leonidas was torn from his mother's arms in 520 BC, he entered a system designed to destroy everything weak, everything compassionate, everything human. This is where the story gets truly dark. Boys slept naked on reed beds they gathered themselves. Food, deliberately insufficient, forcing them to steal or starve. The punishment for theft wasn't for stealing. It was for getting caught. One boy, legend says, let a stolen fox gnaw through his stomach rather than reveal his crime. They called this education. Modern psychologists have another word, systematic torture. But wait, it gets worse. At age 12, each boy received a mentor, an adult warrior who would shape his development. The nature of these relationships. Let's just say Sparta's approach to pedagogy would horrify any civilized society. Then came the krypteia selection at 18. The most promising killers were sent into the countryside with daggers and a single order: kill helots, any helots. Bonus points for the strongest, the ones who might lead rebellions. Leonidas excelled. His instructors noted his particular efficiency, his ability to disconnect from the act. When he returned from his krypteia year with 17 confirmed kills, above average, they knew they had created something special, something monstrous. Then something happened that defied all military logic. In 490 BC, King Cleomenes, Leonidas's half-brother, died under mysterious circumstances. Found in prison, supposedly a suicide, though the wounds suggested otherwise. Leonidas, the third son who should never have ruled, suddenly ascended to the Aegean throne. His first act? Intensifying the agoge program. His reasoning? Persia grows strong. Sparta must grow harder. The selection of the 300 began years before Thermopylae. Leonidas didn't want the best warriors. He wanted men with living sons, men whose bloodlines would survive. But hidden in plain sight was an even more shocking truth. Each Spartan would bring 7 helos as support. That's 2,100 enslaved humans marching to certain death, their names erased from every record. Here's the part they cut from the movie: the physical transformation. By age 30, a Spartan warrior's body told the story of the agoge. Scars covered approximately 40% of their skin. Deliberately broken and reset bones created denser skeletal structures. Their pain tolerance exceeded normal human limits. Leonidas himself bore a distinctive scar from right eyebrow to left jaw, a training accident that nearly cost him an eye. The Persian threat had been growing since Darius's defeat at Marathon. When Xerxes inherited the throne, he inherited his father's humiliation and hunger for revenge. By 481 BC, reports reached Sparta. The largest army in human history was mobilizing. 2 million men, they said. The earth trembled beneath their march. Modern archaeologists found something that changes everything. Weapons caches dated to 481 BC, hidden throughout Spartan territory. Leonidas wasn't preparing for defense. He was preparing for something else entirely. The oracle at Delphi had whispered a prophecy. Either Sparta would fall, or a Spartan king would die. Leonidas had already made his choice. When the earth shook under 2 million Persian feet, Leonidas had already decided who would live and who would die. Dawn, August 480 BC. The march to Thermopylae began with a lie. Leonidas told the ephors he was leading a sacred guard to the Krypteia festival. In reality, he was marching 300 Spartans and 2,100 helots towards certain death. But Leonidas smiled, because he knew something the ephors didn't. Day 1 covered 70 miles. The Spartans sang paeans, war hymns that echoed off mountain walls. Behind them, silent and loaded like pack animals, the helots carried the real weight. Spare shields, replacement spears, food for warriors who saw them as expendable equipment. The ground literally changed color from the dust of their passage. But here's what really happened. 6,700 other Greeks joined them. Thespians, Thebans, Corinthians, Arcadians. History forgot their names because Sparta wrote the story. These weren't just allies, they were witnesses Leonidas would need to eliminate. The math was simple. Dead men tell no tales. The Hot Gates earned their name from sulfur springs that reeked of the underworld. The pass, at its narrowest, spanned 50 feet, wide enough for maybe 8 men standing shoulder to shoulder. Mountains rose on one side, cliffs dropped to the sea on the other. Leonidas walked the ground like a man selecting his own grave. "Perfect," he said. His captain asked, "For defense?" Leonidas didn't answer. Then came the sound no soldier ever forgets. Persian scouts. Light cavalry, probing for weakness. The Spartans didn't form ranks. Instead, they exercised naked, combing their long hair. The psychological warfare had begun. One captured scout, brought before Leonidas, was released with a message. Tell Xerxes the sons of Heracles await. Scientists now know what really happened during those first negotiations. Xerxes sent envoys offering terms. Submit, keep your lands, become friends of the Persian Empire. Reasonable by any standard. Leonidas's response? He had the messengers watch as Spartans executed a group of helots for cowardice, a demonstration of Spartan justice. The message was clear: we are not reasonable men. The war council that night revealed fractures in the Greek alliance. The Phocians wanted to defend the mountain path. The Arcadians suggested naval support. But Leonidas had already positioned his Spartans at the narrowest point, claiming the honor of first contact. What followed defied every rule of ancient warfare. He ordered defensive positions abandoned, aggressive stance only. Unknown to the other Greeks, Leonidas had received intelligence about the Anopeia path over the mountains. A local named Ephialtes had already made contact, offering to guide Persians around the pass for gold. But wait, archaeological evidence suggests Leonidas knew about this secret path all along. Stone markers, clearly Spartan, have been found along the route. The betrayal was anticipated, maybe even encouraged. The smell alone drove men mad. 10,000 Persian horses, 200,000 men, the sulfur springs, the sea. As night fell on the second day, Greek allied forces numbered exactly 7,000. Against them, conservative estimates place Persian forces at 200,000, not the mythical millions. Still impossible odds, but Leonidas had one more card to play. That night he gathered his 300. Breakfast well, he told them, for tonight we dine in Hades. But to his helot contingent he gave different orders, orders that would horrify modern military ethicists. They were to hold the wings, absorb the arrow storms, buy time with their bodies. Not one chronicler recorded their names. The Thespians, all 700 of them, volunteered to stay. Their commander, Demophilus, was either incredibly brave or incredibly naive. He didn't know about Leonidas's final protocol, the one that would ensure no allied witness survived. Then Leonidas did something unthinkable. He sent away the other Greek forces. Tell them Sparta held, he said. They thought it was mercy. It was actually calculated murder. As dawn approached on the third day, Leonidas stood with 300 Spartans, 700 Thespians, 400 Thebans, held against their will as suspected Persian sympathizers, and 2,100 helots. Approximately 3,500 men against an army that blackened the horizon. The real number will chill your blood, not because of its size, but because of how precisely Leonidas had calculated who would die. Then came the morning when Xerxes himself rode forward, and everything changed. 5:47 a.m., day 1. The bronze bell tone of struck helmets announced the beginning. Xerxes had sent his Median troops first, expendable forces, to test Spartan resolve. What happened next would haunt Persian soldiers for generations. The phalanx moved like a single organism, spears creating a hedge of death 8 feet beyond the shield wall. In 15 minutes, 500 Medians lay dying in the dust. The Spartan rotation system was mechanical genius. Every 15 minutes, fresh warriors rotated to the front. But look closer. Helots dragged away the wounded, held the flanks, died in droves. For every Spartan that fell, 7 helots perished. The ground became mud, but not from rain. Then something extraordinary occurred. The Spartans began their dance of death, the Pyrrhish. Seemingly retreating in disorder, they lured Persian forces into the narrow pass. Then, at a signal, they wheeled with parade ground precision. Spears found gaps in Persian armor with surgical accuracy. The funnel became an abattoir. Persian bodies piled so high they formed barriers. Xerxes watched from his golden throne as his Medians broke. Time for the professionals. Enter the immortals, 10,000 of Persia's finest, never before defeated. Their scale armor glittered like serpent skin. Their reputation alone had conquered cities. But the immortals had never faced the agoge's graduates. Here's the part no historian wants to admit. It wasn't courage that made Spartans superior. It was programming. Where Persians fought to live, Spartans had been taught to die. The phalanx pushed forward, a bronze glacier grinding everything in its path. Spears broke, replaced instantly by helot runners. When shields splintered, fresh ones appeared. The support system was invisible but essential. The killing became mechanical. Thrust, twist, withdraw. Step forward over the corpse, repeat. Persian arrows fell like rain. Witnesses spoke of the sky darkening. Leonidas, a Spartan officer, made his legendary quip. Good, then we shall have our battle in the shade. But hidden beneath the bravado was calculation. Each Spartan carried only what he could use. Each helot carried replacement everything. By noon, Persian casualties mounted toward 2,000. Spartan losses, fewer than 50, though helot casualties already exceeded 200. The narrowness of the pass neutralized Persian numbers. Waves of attackers compressed into a killing field 50 feet wide. The mathematics of death favored the defenders, for now. But Xerxes had more than numbers. As afternoon sun blazed, he deployed psychological warfare. Musicians played to tire the mind. Incense burned to mask the stench of death. Fresh troops rotated in continuously, while the same Spartans held the line. This is where Leonidas's selection criteria proved genius. These men had trained together since childhood. They could fight blind, knowing exactly where their brothers stood. Night brought no relief. Persians attempted infiltration, sending Scythian troops through darkness. The Spartans were ready. They'd coated their bronze with mud to kill reflection, stationed helot sentries as tripwires. What followed wasn't battle but butchery. Persian night fighters, elite in their own right, died in darkness, killed by men who'd trained blindfolded since age 10. Day 2 dawned on a charnel house. Conservative estimates place first-day Persian casualties at 5,000. The myth says 20,000, but even 5,000 corpses in that narrow space created logistical nightmares. Persians couldn't retrieve their dead without entering the killing zone. Disease threatened. Morale plummeted. Xerxes deployed his reserve forces, Saka warriors, Bactrian cavalry, useless in the pass, Ethiopian